The reason that people feel risky is they don't have enough knowledge for preventing all these risks yet.
You're listening to KBcast, the cybersecurity podcast for all executives. Cutting through the jargon and hype to understand the landscape where risk and technology meet. Now, here's your host, Carissa Breen.
Kevin, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here today because you are a very knowledgeable individual, and we are going to be talking about something that has a bit of controversy in the market, and that's around cryptocurrency, but we're going to be focusing on green cryptocurrency. So before we dive into the specifics of that, we always like to start our podcast off with talking about you and your professional journey. So please, Kevin, walk our audience through where you started and where you are now.
Okay, yep. Thank you very much for having me, giving this conversation. I always like to share the knowledge of and experience of blockchain because for blockchain itself, the philosophy is about sharing, so it's about consensus. And I've been in this industry for long enough since year 2014, and I started with mining business, which is like a very common starting point for people merging themselves from the traditional business to the blockchain or cryptocurrency business. So I was attracted by the white paper of Bitcoin. All right, I found the actually aim to solve the core problem or issues of human society, which is the trust issue. And I believe most of our common expenditure in the government or in the organizations is always to solve this issue. And I believe with this kind of system, we can reduce a lot of cost on the solving the problem of trust, also become very efficient. So where am I now? So I was a miner. So I was with few friends. We had a mining company in China. We even involved in the investments of like VeChain and all these major manufacturers of Bitcoin miners. And then later on, because we have quite a reserve in Bitcoin at that time, so we become investors. Like friends from the garage coffee that in Beijing, they always have bringing nice ideas for the future, for what we're gonna do for blockchain, using blockchain as the tool, as the media actually to benefit people more in fairness and transparency. Later on, I merged myself from a miner to an investor. And up until today, I'm still a venture capitalist. And also to the day, I'm at the point I'm trying to merge the traditional finance industry more towards to cryptocurrency finance and vice versa as well, because I always claim myself as a missionary of blockchain technology and philosophies, and I'm seeing this evolution in the last almost 10 years of my journey. It's just so exciting. The funny thing is, in year 2014, when I'm talking about Bitcoin to friends or introduce this idea to people, they always said, Kevin, you're very well educated, you're smart. Why don't you find a decent job instead of spreading this sort of sounds like a pyramid scam? But today, if we talk about Bitcoin or these major tokens, and people go like, "Wow, you're very innovative. Can you teach me and can you tell me about it?" So it's a big change in people's recognition in this industry. But however, because the social influence, the public exposure of this industry actually give most of the people a wrong indication. People feel like in this industry, it's just full of money to be made. That's why there's lots of people running into like scam traps. Also, investment goes to something that which is not really worth anything, so lots of money. So I think it's my duty to actually give people a more clear and right understanding of the industry as well as the cryptocurrency.
Wow, that's excellent. I like that you're saying that you're obviously in space and you're interested in it, because I think there's still people still quite apprehensive about this space. Now, it's probably because it's new and people don't really understand it and they're dubious of it. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring you on today, to maybe demystify a lot of theories or philosophies people have. And so when we get into cryptocurrencies, now obviously crypto uses like a lot of electricity, right? Now, depends on who you are. Some people are really for crypto. A lot of people don't like it because it is bad for the environment, right? But I want to discuss with you today green cryptocurrency. So I want to know what it is, and then what are you guys then doing about this in the space?
Sure. Okay, the green idea I always have because, as I mentioned, I entered this industry as a miner. So we know how much consumption of the electricity for the current algorithm that Bitcoin or Ethereum has. Okay, I'll give you a quite decent example of how much electricity for a scale of 10,000 kilowatts. Okay, 10,000 kilowatts of the every hour of usage of electricity can facilitate about 6,000 machines today. All right, but 10,000 kilowatts per hour is actually energy to support a city with 1 million people. So you know how much power is actually consumed, right? When we're not talking about numbers, but 1 million people in the city probably spend 10,000 kilowatts per hour. But one mining site is not a big one. Only 6,000 machines can consume as much as the same.
So Kevin, can I just interrupt there? How are people okay with that? Those are large numbers, and with everything that's going on in across the world with global warming and how much electricity is costing. And I mean, I probably already know the answer to this, but does that not concern the average person, or do you think people just don't care? Because that's pretty high numbers.
Okay, first of all, the idea of using those powers is to use surplus powers, which is like those hydro plants, especially like the season today, right? In China, it's the peak season of hydro plants, and there's lots of surplus in production, and they have to actually diffuse it to spend money to diffuse those electricity. Otherwise, it's just the grid is not going to buy that much. So that was the original idea of mining in China or in most of the hydraulic power plants. So people wouldn't feel it for that season. But however, during winter time, okay, we have to go to the place with coal generated powers, which is northern territory of China or countries like Kazakhstan and those places, even Iceland.
Wow, that's okay. I see your point. So
Yeah, I think I didn't touch the why. What's really means by green? Okay.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. Let's go back to the green side of it now.
Okay. So on the green side, okay, we know that in the city of Melbourne, right, we light up the city at night. Even people's not using all the most of the buildings has the lights on. Just give the beautiful view of the city. However, it's a waste of energy. Basically, it's not really practical usage for it, but it brings the value of the look of the city, which means those electricities spend it for some useful purposes. But however, in Bitcoin or Ether mining, those POW minings, okay, the reason the machine is consuming that much power is only for one reason. It's for those computers to be online. All these calculations they are doing is actually worth nothing. It's only because there's competition in mining. See, which machine gets more or which machine gets the reward of the mining outcome, which is Bitcoin or Ether, right? So they have to keep calculating. And all this decryption of this calculation become harder and harder. Just make sure all these machines keep upgrading themselves in hardware. So basically, it actually leads to another waste on the hardware as well. So in my understanding, if we can put, first of all, we have to put those powers usage into something that really benefits the society, right? So today's blockchain, they don't have anything we call the function of storage. So you cannot store data in the blockchain. And the blockchain information, which is only ledger data, are very small. So first thing we think that if we can actually store data into the blockchain, will make those power which consumed by the miners become useful. So that's the first point for become greener. And second point to be greener, of course, to reduce the cost of the electricity for each machine. To do that, we have to change the whole algorithm. Like before POW, it's a proof of work, right? The algorithm is actually keep evolving the difficulty for people to compete on getting rewards on Bitcoin or on Ether. But the idea was actually have everyone else in the beginning. It's like most of the people will have their own laptop or their PCs to mine Bitcoin. It has the genuine purpose of decentralization. So, for example, if we have our servers or storage computers in our office, if the office has fire or anything going on, right, we lost our data. So we probably have another backup data center to back up that. But that's about it. Normally, let's say Amazon, they have like 3 layers of storage. First is the storage for people interface, like people can download, upload very quickly. The second is the secondary backup. So let's say they backup all this data every 24 hours or 48 hours or a week to this secondary backup data center. Then there's a disaster backup center, which is the third one, which maybe updating the information quite, not in a high frequency, but still for the safety of the data. But the point is, if all these 3 layers of storage is destroyed, so we lost our data, the safety of the network is not there. In blockchain, we used the idea was use every individual people's computer to actually performing the mining, storing the data, which means if some computer, let's say one country, let's say China, they were banned mining, right, or banned cryptocurrency. But the ledger of all this cryptocurrency on blockchain is still existing because the rest of the world, people still having those data in their computer or in their miners. However, when we talk about today's mining scale, like putting hundreds and thousands of machines in one spot, it's actually against the original idea of decentralization. So to be green, we should develop a different algorithm, can provide storage, which is real, right? For real usage. We don't have to go to Amazon or Google Cloud. We can use those decentralized cloud. Secondly, we will actually limit the IP address for each miner, right? So one IP represents one household. If you want to get 10 IPs in your home, you have to have 10 connections, which is cost you too much. So one IP only allows one miner. That also the miner will work more like a router, which doesn't really consume much power. So if we have this all sorted out, so we make the power efficiency much better. So we spend probably 1% of the power as compared to today's mining facilities. And also that 1% of power, we make it in a real use. We can store data, right? So in other words, if the IDCs, the big IDCs that actually consuming power because they have the business, they have people storing data there. Now we change into somewhere else, like decentralizing into every household. So those powers also will be reduced, but will be reduced from the IDC as well. So that's the basic concept of the green idea.
How far away? I mean, is the government going to regulate this? And I mean, it's hard to say because like crypto is not really regulated yet. But I mean, I'm just looking at it. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate right now with everything that's going on in the world. They're now talking about moving to electric cars by X date, and solar panels and all these things. What's going to happen? Is the government going to regulate it? Because I definitely hear what you're saying. That's a lot of electricity to use up to mine one Bitcoin. I think what is it? The stat was 138,000 hours or of YouTube or 1.2 million Visa transactions to mine one Bitcoin. Like that's substantial. So will it become regulated, or do you think that? I mean, I understand that you guys are sort of pioneering this green cryptocurrency, but what are your sort of thoughts around how's this going to unfold?
Oh well, there are always a conflicts in between, well-being and the society norms to the actual business world with real benefits. So if we're in a country with open market, right? The supplier of electricity, they're always looking for profit. As long if the people using it to either to mining Bitcoin or to farm to do anything else, to the supplier of electricity, they make no difference to them, right? Which one gives them higher profit? So they will probably sell to the people. So of course the government is trying to regulate it, but it really depends on what form of government. It's going to be very difficult. Instead, we're trying to solve the problem from the basic, which is probably change the algorithm. So if the activity itself doesn't cost that much electricity, that could be the best solution to actually benefit both sides.
Got you. Okay. So just pressing on that point a little bit more, as I alluded to, 138,762 hours was the exact number. And as I've touched on multiple times in this interview, it's not good for the environment. And you and your team are obviously finding new ways to reduce that. But how much do you believe that this will be reduced by? Even percentage, hypothetically.
Okay, I would say if we use the solution and make the size of the miner like a router, we will reduce more than 95% of electricity that currently they actually spend it on. But it needs a time for people to adopt that because see all these blockchains like Bitcoin blockchains or Ether blockchains, okay, they have a huge amount of assets as actually link or actually build on this kind of value system. So people always have a concern to change into new things, right? Safety is always the first issue in finance industry, also in crypto industry. But I believe because it's open source, yeah, I think you understand, right? All these blockchain projects, the coding is all open source. So if we're confident enough to put our coding for the new algorithm open sourcely, and people will actually come to assist, criticize, and doing additional patches on it. So after all, it's everyone's blockchain, and I believe that's always the safest way to do it. So if we announce this idea of green blockchain and keep promoting it, I will have an estimation of about 3 to 4 years that people adopting this kind of green algorithm. And I believe most of the blockchain developer team will adopt this algorithm as well, because that's where it gets welcomed by the general public.
So when you say 3 to 4 years, how do you sort of arrive at that number? Is that based on what you're seeing, some of the research you've done? Is it based on assumptions? Is it based on projections?
To have this is actually based on the theories of consensus growing. So it normally takes about 10,000 hours, okay, for people to believe and to be comfortable with a new set of rules or new kind of technology. Let's look at all this instant messaging. I believe WhatsApp was out in market in year 2009, but WhatsApp become very popular stuff. You can hear all this on about year 2013, 14. All right. So that's where I get this estimation.
Yeah, and like anything, it does take a while for adoption and then mass adoption for something like WhatsApp or cryptocurrencies to become ubiquitous. But I guess really that coming back to the green crypto, and I'm sorry to keep bringing out, I was very curious about it because do you believe that people who have historically been in the crypto space care about green cryptocurrency, or because I'm trying to understand the motivation because like you sort of said earlier, sometimes when we're doing things, of course there's always a price to doing business there, whether that's financially, but then that could potentially be environmentally. In this, this is an environmental problem. So I'm just curious to know like the motivation on the people who are sort of your early crypto adopters. Would they care for this, or do you think there's only select people like yourself that care around, and foster the green cryptocurrency belief?
I believe, okay, not many people that actually really care about this. The motivation of this, I think you can define in two categories. Okay, so the first category is the people who's worried about the future of blockchain, right? If the blockchain is really against the total carbon reduction or this environmental thoughts, which is a common sense, it's a common consensus of the global, right? So if a technology is going against the whole human race, of course this technology will not go far, right? So this is the category that people who's really in love with blockchain and wants to make a change, make sure we're actually benefiting society, human society, not hurting it. So in order to have longer and sustainable life cycle for blockchain technology. So that's the first category. Most of the people will fall into the second category, which is that worry about the market. Let's see, if all the countries, because of environmental issues, banning mining, most of the people, of course, the governments and the jurisdictions, they have much bigger noises to announce to the world, and this is the trend, and this is blockchain is actually damaging our environment. So long termly, the market, the profit would not be there. That's why this group of people will think green it is essential because for the future growth of the market, which related to their personal benefits.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'd like to now explore the cybersecurity concerns when it does come to Bitcoin and crypto. What are your sort of thoughts?
Oh, I think cybersecurity on blockchain is not that scary. I think most of the medias or even the government entities is actually overreacted on the risk on blockchain. In some way, I think blockchain is safer than the current centralized system. For example, for the transparency, right? For the track of the funds, it's so easy to check. Anyone can log into Bitcoin.io or blockchain.io to actually check the Bitcoin transactions from the beginning until today. So the records are always there. But the only issue is that cryptocurrency can be transferred, without KYC. That's the only issue. But if I break this all down, okay, let's see. Most of the country has difficulty of managing crypto exchanges, right? That's why lots of countries are hesitating to issue crypto exchange license. But what's the real difference in between crypto exchange and normal stock and share exchange? Can you tell me what's the difference?
Look, I'm not a finance person, so I don't think I'm the best person to answer that.
So when we trade stock and shares, right? We're buying in a lower price, we sell in a higher price. That's ideal. We make our money, we go, right? We don't withdraw our shares into our wallet. We only withdraw the money we make or we lost. So on the cryptocurrency exchange side, basically it does the same thing. But only difference is you can withdraw your Bitcoin, you can withdraw your Ether, you can withdraw your Polkadot, right? So that's the only difference in between crypto exchange and normal stock and share exchange. So in this case, if we wanted to avoid the risk, it's so simple, right? People, most 99% people come to trade in cryptocurrencies. They just want to make money, like the people who's trading stock and shares. They don't mind if they don't withdraw their Bitcoin or Ether, as long as they can withdraw their cash. They make the money, they're gonna spend the cash. So the solution is if let's say Australia will actually run a national owned stock crypto exchange like ASX. The only thing they do is okay, stop people withdraw their cryptocurrencies. They can come in with cash or crypto, but withdraw only cash, right? That facilitates most of the people's needs, and there's no additional risk for the jurisdiction. Just manage it as normal stock and share exchange.
So you made a comment before that the media overreacted. What do you mean specifically though when you say that?
The overreacting is because the feature of anonymous, right? You don't know where the money goes. I mean, you know where it goes, but you don't know who's actually taking it behind it. And also, you're seeing people lost their asset from their crypto wallet, have no way to get it back. That's the risk. But however, if you understand this way, you'll find this risk is not there, right? If you want to go to a centralized exchange or centralized wallet, just work as a bank. If you lose your username and password, you can always call the service provider to give it back, as long as you can prove yourself, right? The only thing that people lose their asset cannot get back is using decentralized wallet, which means that on the first hand, you want to have the total control of your asset. So you have those private key to actually access the wallet, right? If you lost the private key, no one knows it. So once you want to have 100% ownership or managementship of your asset, you lose the safety of centralization that can retrieve your password for you. Okay, that's a trade, right? We know this world is fair. If you want to get something, you must lose something. But if you don't like have that risk, go use a centralized exchange. Go use a centralized wallet. It'll be no issues. It's not just like you use a bank.
I hear your point, and I guess I do understand what you're saying in terms of if you want to gain something, you have to be prepared to lose something. But maybe that's why people aren't super into it right now because they don't want to lose stuff. There is no regulation. So, for example, uh, if I thought I was trading my Bitcoin and it was going to you, but it went to someone else, that's a problem. I can't. There's no way of retrieving it. There's no way of getting it back. That's it. It's gone. It's done. It's dusted. So, mate, do you think that that is the reason why people are a bit afraid?
First of all, using the decentralization, okay, people think that makes sense. But however, for the current living habits and experiences, most of the people don't need decentralization yet. Okay, so that's why people are actually taking the risk to exchange something that they're not necessarily needed yet.
When you say taking the risk, it's probably still quite a small percentage, though, right? And so, back to your calculation before around 3 to 4 year adoption, how quickly do you think that that'll start sort of spreading? Because I mean, if we start to say, okay, let's say 5% of people, for example, arbitrary numbers, are prepared to take that risk. What about the rest of the 95? And how quickly will that 95 then roll out over 3 or 4 years to get that ubiquity in the market?
So this really depends on current banking system. We know that see now I think you heard the news in China. There's some banks that they cannot facilitate cash withdrawal anymore, right? And people now think, oh, banks still have risk. My money's in the bank, but now I cannot get it, right? So if this is things keep happening, people will merge into crypto more, right? Because that's where you can control your own value, your own asset. And plus, in today's, let's see, in UK, US, or even in UAE, Dubai, okay, the transactions in between people to people from a bank become more and more difficult, right? They ask a lot of questions, of course, for KYC, for ML purposes, but it really affects people's convenience, right? You probably have to disclose if you transfer a quite large amount. You have to disclose lots of paperwork to prove that the funds is going. You get the funds in a proper way and you transfer to a proper place. Okay, so if the traditional banking service keep getting harder and harder for people to use, and there'll be more people to move themselves to the crypto side.
I get that. But I guess my question probably more so is, I mean, I used to work in a bank, so I understand. I used to work in security in a bank. My question would be then, and I get what you're saying, it's an inconvenience and everyone's all about convenience and doing it quickly, but don't you think if there's not a lot of questions and not a lot of sort of due diligence, which is what crypto provides, it's almost a breeding ground for criminal activity though?
Yep, it is. I mean, anything, any new technology, even let's say atomic energy, right? Well, the purpose was for provide cleaner and more efficient and power for people, but now they're used as a weapon, right? So technology itself is neutral. The reason that people feel risky is they don't have enough knowledge for preventing all these risks yet. It's like if people never seeing a gun, you lightly pull a trigger and you hurt someone. But when the gun has been there for like 200 years, right? People know, oh, there's a safety switch. You don't point at people. So once you know the procedure of safely handle a gun is not risky. It's the same thing because blockchain technology is new. It's actually a big revolution from centralization to decentralization. The way of thinking, what is fundamentals, has to change, has to be learned, has to be experienced, right? Once people get used to, the majority of people get used to how to safely use a crypto wallet, it becomes no issue.
Yeah, I guess it's just people. I guess there's just a lot of risk then put back on people. So, for example, if and it was recently my business credit card, I don't know, credit card number was obviously stolen from somewhere, a whole bunch of money was taken out, fine, called the bank, it instantly gets put back. That doesn't happen though in crypto land. Too bad, so sad. That's basically what happens. That's a risk. And I would say in today's day and age, with what's happening now in the market, inflation and at the moment, I think it's going to be really hard to get people to risk even more than what they're already risking.
Exactly. Okay. But however, I have my point is, let's see. The risk is only scary if you're not aware of it, right? You know there's a risk out there, but you cannot specifically say what is the risk. I can, if let's say the example you just given by your credit card details being stolen and being spent by someone else, and you can retrieve it back. That's the whole thing. But in crypto world, you can retrieve it back too.
How do you retrieve it back?
Let's see. Today's value we all based on dollars. In Australia, we based on Australian dollars. In US, we based on US dollars. Or in another country, if international trading, most of them are based on US dollar values, right? So which means doesn't matter how much money that you gain from crypto, right? After all, you still have to cash out to spend, right? You can't go there most of the places. You can go, I'll give you a Bitcoin, you give me some milk. You can't do it. So when we talk about this, it's like because the track of the transaction is so clear on blockchain, right? It will goes to a centralized entity to actually cash it out to spend. This is where you actually get the people who's actually stolen these tokens, right? You can track every step done. Let's see, this transaction being 5 times, then goes to Binance and exchange it to Australian dollars. Okay, in Binance, they will have this user who's exchanged this crypto into fiat currency, have his KYC, right? So the police can ask him, where did you get this token from? Oh, I actually swapped it with someone else, or I exchanged it in another exchange, or decentralized exchange. Okay, so basically this is the stolen asset, is stolen crypto is definitely defined. Then the money is there. The cash is with this person who's actually OTC'd or exchanged. So money is there. You can get it back, no problem. And plus, blockchain is working as a ledger. If you think it is a ledger book, you have flipping pages, right? That's what's happening in Ethereum. Ethereum DAO got stolen, I think 400,000 something Ether, all right? They actually flip back the ledger, which means they said, okay, all these records, all these transactions happened after this stolen period. It's no longer valid. We will flip back the ledger to the point where the stolen never happened.
But who demands that though? So I understand that and how the ledger works. It's just more so who can demand it to say, for example, I was supposed to send Bitcoin to you, but it went to someone else. Who then facilitates that? Who is controlling that conversation?
I think it really depends how big the amount is. First of all, like USDT, right? USDT issued on Ethereum chains and TRX chains and a few other chains. Okay, actually on Ether, if the FBI talks to the dev team of Ethereum, they can actually stop a transaction and freeze those tokens in an address too.
Okay, but what if? But the thing is, if I just say someone was impersonating you, and I thought it was you, and I sent it to your wallet, and it wasn't you, which happens, and I was scammed out of it. By that stage, it's too late then. So if it's gone to the other Kevin when I thought I was giving it to you, what then happens? How do I go and try to retrieve that back?
To me, it's always a cost and a return. Okay. Yes, to build a system that which you can retrieve all these tokens, it is still possible. You have to go through a third-party transaction hub that will make things possible. So I believe if the demand is there, the technology will actually develop to suit that kind of demand because that's the the market logic.
So what you're saying is, if I was transferring it to you and someone else was pretending to be you and it went to another Kevin, I can then go and leverage a third party company to say, actually, I was scammed out of my Bitcoin. It didn't go to Kevin Chen, it went to another Kevin. Can you go and find it for me?
Yes, yes. As long as you go to a third-party hub,
But you have to pay for that?
it's not you pay for it. Okay, if the demand there will be a service provider to provide that. Of course, it will cost them, but if they look at the demand on the returns, it's if it's good enough for them to develop that, the business will be there. It's not necessarily the person who's paying for it.
So is that in play at the moment?
Partially, yes.
What do you mean by partially though?
Okay, okay. Partially it means that if you really want to do decentralized exchange, swapping or transferring, right? That's not used. But if you use, but lots of people using a Binance wallet or any other centralized wallet providers, right? Those people will actually help you to retrieve your things. And let's say today you wanted to transfer some money to someone you don't know, right? And you said, oh, you must have the wallet address belongs to Binance. Then I can transfer because Binance will know his KYC. Once you just said that, right? Binance become the hub, right? Become the service provider to give you the same experience as you transfer money to a bank.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do hear what you're saying. There always is that risk, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. It really depends on which way you go, how much knowledge you have, right? See, if I want to do some shady trading, I don't want people know me, and I don't want the person who's accepting my money to be exposed to me either. So I probably use a decentralized transaction, right? And that time I know the risk. Okay, I probably say, oh, I will transfer $1. Say, oh, you received it, then I will actually transfer the rest of the money. That's even for me as an old blockchainer, I do things like this, right? But if it's an open trading, it's something that I don't care anyone else to know that I actually trade with this person. I'll ask, oh, please give me a centralized wallet address, just in case that you don't give me things that I wanted to get from you by transferring you the money. Of course, if this person is not gonna scam you or take the money and run, he will provide that because it's nothing hurting him either.
I do understand what you're saying. It's just more so how do you avoid being scammed, because people get scammed all the time. Like, I mean, I've interviewed multiple people about crypto scams, for example, and it's a real thing. So I'm just curious to know, like, you can't. It's hard to avoid that at the moment. And then there is no real way of, yes, you sort of alluded to it, but there is still no regulation. There's no. I know for a fact, if money got stolen out of my bank, business or personal, doesn't matter, and I know it wasn't me, I know in Australia I can call my bank and they will refund me the money. That is it. But again, in this crypto land, the lines aren't super clear just yet. And I think that's what I'm trying to understand, is that's probably people's apprehension.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're we're keep working on it to get more influence and get more people involved in it, and then the most of the government will come with regulations, right? Because implement new regulations, also implement new tools of investigation, it costs the public money. And if you're trying to solving a problem with a bigger scale, which means the cost is worth it, right? If it's not, I think up until today, cryptocurrency market size, it's very very small. Okay, it's only about 1% of the U.S. stock and share market. So it's a small market. It's a small market cap, and the facilities themselves is still remain the scale that today's crypto market is. But once the scale of the market actually growing bigger, okay, they actually have the ability to facilitate the safety procedures, also to facilitate governments with more regulations, because all these costs will come back to the trading.
Okay, well, like I said, it's probably just going to take adoption, it's awareness, it's having conversations like this to get people to understand, uh, pull it back to basics, not getting too technical with terminology, understanding where the risks are, and understanding the mechanisms and how it works. What does this mean for people? What does this mean for evolution? So, yeah, really appreciate your time today, Kevin, and sort of unveiling, I think, a few thoughts that people would have out there, because I still think it's a new space that people aren't familiar with and people are dubious of these types of things. So, like I said, I wanted to bring you on the show today to uncover a few questions that people had. So thanks very much for your time, and really looking forward to seeing how the crypto market evolves.
Thank you so much for the time, and I'm always glad to share my experience.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope that you found today's episode useful and you took away a few key points. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to get our latest episodes. If you'd like to find out how KBI can help grow your cyber business, then please head over to kbi.digital.
This podcast was brought to you by KBI.media, the voice of cyber.